Today is November 27th of 2011. We are in the Ihiel Foundation, and we will continue with the preliminary of the Zohar secrets, the Zohar HaKadosh, which is the Book of Splendor written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So, in the Torah, according to Zohar, in the Torah we found written on the people of Israel an expression, a Hebrew expression, that is Ami. Am in Hebrew means people, and Ami means my people in Hebrew. The Zohar says, in the Torah there are no vowels, so therefore you shouldn't read it Ami. You should read it as Imi. Imi means with me, my partner, with me. Im is with me. What does this mean? That he created men to be friends, to be their friend. Because who is a friend? He who goes next to you, who's by your side. And he created a people and he called them Imi, the one who comes with me, hand in hand. We are friends, we are partners. Zohar HaKadosh adds, blessed of destiny, those who anoint themselves to studying the Kabbalah. Why? Because the Kabbalah teaches them to be friends of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because it's not about just being called a friend, but you need to know how to be a friend. Before the world was created, the world was tohu vavohu, which is translated as chaos. But careful, because tohu, according to Zohar HaKadosh, is the concept of heaven, of lies. But Bo is a true heaven. So there were truth and lies. How do we eliminate the lies and keep the truth? With the sanctuary. And what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu call the sanctuary in the Zohar? The sanctity of Shabbat. In other words, he who observes Shabbat or Saturday has eliminated the sky of lies, has eliminated the tohu, the chaos. And we have a whole chapter on Shabbat, and it is of extreme importance. It will talk about death for those who don't observe Shabbat. But beware, we're not talking about physical death. We're talking about spiritual death. And what does spiritual death mean? You stop being Imi. You stop being his friend. You're no longer with him. So friend is linked with observing Shabbat. And observing Shabbat, Torah has two expressions. Shamor ve'zahor. Shamor, which means to take care of. And Zahor, which means to remember. He said it in one word. But what does this mean? Why to take care of? Why to remember? What are they referring to? And there's very important symbols here. I go back to the stories that I told you just a second ago, so you can understand what Shamor Vezahor is. We're going to take a look at evil and how you turn it around and you can get good out of it. The example of good and evil, we have it in an episode of Yosef's life, Yosef HaTzadik. Before he received the Tzadik moniker, the just, Yosef, the son of Yaakov, who we know reaches Egypt, and he arrives as a slave because his siblings sold him into slavery. Yosef is tempted. By whom? By his master's wife. And his name was Potiphar. Potiphar's wife falls in love with Joseph because he was of extreme beauty. Talmud says that women menstruated because he was so beautiful. That has never ever happened. And Yosef, that moment, sees himself in a bind because his master's wife is inducing him, trying to seduce him. She even rips his tunic off and finds himself naked in front of her. He is an inch away from falling. But something happens and he doesn't fall. What happened? He had a vision of his father's face. His father's face. And he remembers his teachings, his father's teachings. He has a prophetic vision. And as soon as he has that vision, he resists Potiphar's wife's seduction. In that moment, the Torah calls him the just, Yosef HaTzadik. From that moment on, he has a divine protection that will take him to be the vice pharaoh of all Egypt and owner of the granaries of Egypt when there was hunger. And why am I telling you this story? And why is Yaakov's face called Shamor and Joseph's face Zahor? And when you join Shamor ve Zahor, evil cannot beat you. It cannot defeat you. And now we'll take a look at Yaakov and Yosef, because it's clear that when they're together, evil cannot defeat them. Torah gives you this, but it codes it. Yaakov represents the sun's intelligence, and Yosef, the moon's intelligence. And when do these two join together? The 15th of every month, right? And how do you call that? Full moon. Do you know how many of our holidays fall on a full moon? That's exactly right. Just about all of our holidays, all our Jewish holidays, is when we can absorb the universe's energy. We can name Pesach, Easter. We can mention Purim. We can mention Tu B'Shvat. Shavuot. No, not Shavuot. That's on the 6th, not the 15th. We can mention Tu B'Av. Those are moments of great energy. The name of God that Jacob is given by God is Yud He Vav He. And I'm going to write it down. And the name of God for Yosef is Shaddai. Here we have Yaakov and under Yosef. Yud Ke Vav Ke is Jacob and Shaddai is Yosef. What does this mean? That when you join these two names together, it's the same as what you see at the Torah. Yosef had the appearance of his father's face, and Potiphar's wife couldn't seduce him. Or sun and moon, which falls with full moon and all of our holidays. Or Shamor veZahor, from Shabbat. In other words, to take care of, to remember. And what happens when you join Shamor with Zahor? Shalom arrives. It's a combination of names that give you peace, spiritual, interior peace. Something not many people have.
In Hebrew you call it Nachat Ruach.
Interior peace. It's written in the Zohar, who doesn't observe and remember Shabbat deserves death. Why? Because a stressed person cannot be a friend of God. Only through spiritual peace can you get close to God. Zohar is slowly deciphering concepts that even today we weren't fully understanding, even though we spoke of them. Shabbat is known in the Zohar as my daughter. Because how do you say daughter in Hebrew? Bat. And within Shabbat, you have the word bat, daughter. And what remains? Have the Shin. So, daughter of Shin. And what does that mean? The daughter of Shin. And here we reveal yet another secret. Shin is formed by 3 Hebrew letters. Who knows them? Shin is formed by a Zain, a Yud, and a Vav. Zain, Yud, Vav. And in Hebrew, Zain, Yud, Vav is read Ziv. And do you know what Ziv means? It's a radiance, a flash of light, like when you turn on a lighter. That spark is called Ziv. A spark or radiance, but at a consciousness level. An understanding that you didn't have that works exactly as the spark of a match. But what spark, what radiance are we talking about? As you see, Ziv, Shin, which has 3 strokes, Zain, Yud, Vav. Those 3 strokes correspond Keter, Chochmah, and Bina. So the higher spiritual plane. Keter, Chochmah, and Bina. And they are the 3 strokes in Shin. See them here. Keter, Chochmah, and Binah. Do you see it? And what is that radiance? It's a reflection of Olam Haba. Olam Haba is the coming world, the afterlife, the world that all Jewish people aspire to after life. What's this coming world? And what's hell? The opposite. We will explain what Olam Haba is, and we will explain what Gehinnom is, or hell. For the small kids, they understand hell as some place where you send somebody who's dead to be burnt alive. But we're talking about somebody who's already dead, so they don't have a body. They won't burn alive. So that can't be it. Olam Haba is about a man surrounded by angels with pretty plants and spring sun, but that's not it either. So what is heaven and what's hell? We need to explain these concepts. And I assure you that 99.99% of the population does not know what paradise is. And many rabbis speak about Olam Haba, but nobody actually explains what Olam Haba is, that coming world. And many threaten you with Gehinnom, and nobody knows what it is. So let's see, who can explain it to me? What's heaven and what's hell? To be close to Akadosh Baruch Hu, or far? No. To study the secrets, like in schools? That was a certain level of an explanation. I'm going to give you an even higher level, something more profound, deeper. This is true, but I'm going to delve deeper now. After this world, our soul departs for another world where the divine light is shown to us. If this soul is not ready to withstand this divine light, metaphorically, its blindness is unbearable. If the soul is ready to withstand this divine light, their happiness is infinite. Both will have a right to this divine light, but one cannot take it and the other can. One can digest it, the other cannot. We can take a more modern physical example from the ophthalmologic world. How does the eye work? If an eye is in the dark and I'm going to shine a light on it, all of a sudden, you will be blind. It will hurt and you won't be able to see anything and you will not be able to withstand that light. However, if there's somebody who's out in the pool, bathing in the sun's rays, and at that point you shine a light in front of them, it won't affect them. It won't hurt his eye. So now we'll take a look at what the eye is, what the divine light is, and what blindness is. All these are metaphors that I need to explain to know what will happen to the soul. The souls that are used to meditating and being able to see the divine world when they are alive, while they are alive. The souls that are used to work the Kabbalah the same way we're doing here in this classroom. It's like we're in the swimming pool at 3 p.m. We have the sunlight. And when we have the divine world's visions from the afterlife, they will just continue. They will not hurt us. But he who has never meditated, who has never understood the Hebrew letters, who has never meditated the names of God, and all of a sudden they get all the visions from above, it is too much. They can't take it because they're not used to it, and they suffer. They interpret it as a nightmare. That is Gehinnom. It means that both will have access to that divine light, but one can withstand it, but the other one cannot. It's insufferable to them. That is Ziv. At what moment can we access this divine light? The best moment is Shabbat. There was a school with a Kabbalist master that was very deep. And during the week, his students would ask him questions as he was teaching them. I'm telling a story here. It's just a story. Wait for a second. I can wait. Hold on. Sometimes questions were very difficult to answer. And what did the master say to his students? Wait until Shabbat's afternoon, and I will answer you then. Why? Because Shabbat in the afternoon is when Olam Haba's doors are open and he could visualize those answers. And that's what we call Ziv, that divine light. You can imagine that those who observe Shabbat attend the synagogue on Friday afternoon or Saturday morning, but the highest moment, nobody's there, just Saturday in the afternoon. Exactly when Olam Haba's doors open. We have finished talking about Shabbat, and Zohar, now in these preliminaries, moves from one topic to another. Now it makes another comment because the Zohar in the end is a comment of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's students and disciples and their talks, or with a foreigner, another rabbi. Here we have two rabbis, Rabbi Abba, Rabbi Eliezer. They are two mystics. They find each other, and Rabbi Abba tells Rabbi Eliezer, the Yud came up to me and said, what can I do for you? And the letter Yud says, I will do as follows. I will fill up with goods, of hidden letters, and superior, beautiful letters. Then I will come to you and I will give you two letters, Shin and Yud. Oh my, what a comment. Well, what is the letter Yud? I will tell you right now. It's meditation. And it says that it will fill him with goods. So if you want to have goods, in this world, you need to meditate. And Yud will come hand in hand with Shin. And when Yud joins up with Shin, you have a word. Yud and Shin in Hebrew form Yesh. And what does Yesh mean? There is. Do you know what a crisis is? That there isn't. There is not. What is abundance? That there is. There's bread, or there isn't. There's health, or there isn't. There's business, or there isn't. When you join Yud with Shin, Yesh. There is. You want there to be? Meditate. And that's what Rabbi, Abba, and Eliezer are talking about. Who said this? It was Rabbi Abba, who was son of Rav Amnuma, who was a mystic. Nuna in Hebrew means peace. In other words, he's explaining how to live in peace and in abundance. Meditate. Prepare your eye for the divine light, because when you leave this world, you will need it. You will need a narrow pupil to withstand the light, because if it's dilated, you won't be able to take in the light. And how do you adapt the eye to the light? By being in the light. And how do you adapt to the visions of Olam Haba? Having those visions in this world. And how do you have the visions in this world? Through meditation. Yud. Yud came to him and said, meditate, prepare for Olam Haba. Now there's a complicated concept. You need to know that the same way we explained that Jacob was part of Sefirat Tiferet and Yosef was part of Sefirat Yesod, one of them corresponded with the sun and the other with the moon. Aaron belongs to Sefirat Od. And Moshe Rabbeinu is part of Sefirat Netzah. The name of God for Sefirat Netzah is spelled out Yud Heva He Tsevaot. And its literal translation is God is the leader of all the celestial armies. Leading that army, there's an angel who's Mikab-Seel. He's the angel that held together the two temples, the temple of King Solomon and temple of Ezra. When he retired, the temples fell. That's why we need to reference often, when we want to connect with the temple, to Yud Hevav He Tsevaot. Because it alludes this angel, Mikab-Seel. I also reference the fact that if you believe the temple has been destroyed, you're wrong. The stones are not there, but the temple is. You can't see it with your eye, but your soul can connect with its energy at any given moment. And it's not because you can't see something that it's not there. But if you believe it's not there, then it isn't. If you are aware that it is, then it is there. And that's called quantum mechanics. There are many things that happen that the eye does not see. For example, when the justs travel, for example, Rabbi Abba and Rabbi Eliezer, that were Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's alumni, when two just travel and they talk about Kabbalah, in other words, the secrets of the Torah, something that the eye doesn't see happens, and I will explain it to you. From Olam Haba, in other words, from that world that we aspire to be, to which we aspire to be once we've been buried, just come down that are no longer part of this world, and they inhabit those who are just and are talking about Kabbalah, and they inspire them to understand things from the Torah that they would otherwise not understand. And that gives you an intelligence that you wouldn't have on your own. It is very interesting that two Kabbalists are traveling and start talking about Kabbalah. You bring down intelligences from other world and they integrate in your mind and they inspire you. And those are mechanisms that man cannot see. We see in Zohar how many Kabbalists are going from one village to another and they talk about the secrets of the Torah over and over again. And why is this? Because they bring down souls from another world, souls with an erudition, with a knowledge that we don't have and we would otherwise not find out about. Why traveling? Why not sitting down? Why traveling? That's a very good question. I'm thinking about it. Because there's nothing that happens in the world above that doesn't happen in the lower world first. So we need to activate something from beneath so something happens above. The just need to travel from top to bottom. So we're traveling from one village to another, so they travel from the heaven to earth. And that would be the answer. Since you're going to provoke or spark a travel from the Olam Haba souls to this world, and the only way to spark a travel is by you yourself traveling. Difficult question. Why doesn't it happen when they're in a static place? Because there's no traveling. If there's no travel below, there's no travel above. Can you not travel with your soul and that way you provoke movement in your soul? Why do we have a body? To move. And why do we need to move? Because a move underneath creates one above. Otherwise, we would be static souls and we wouldn't have a body. The body is the one that gets all this going, and the body is defined by something that is in time, space, and movement. I'm going to give you an additional concept before we take a break. Every man has 72 names for God in his soul. When a person dies, those 72 names for God detach from that person's soul, from the soul that inhabited that body. And Zohar says that if you want to resuscitate somebody, You need to bring down those 72 names for God, because that's what gives them life in the first place. If those 72 names leave, they need to come back. You need to make them come back. Eliyahu Hanavi resuscitated Habakkuk. Habakkuk has as gematry 216, which is 3 times 72. Since each name of God has 3 letters, 3 times 72 is 216. And that's the key. What Eliyahu Hanavi did was to descend the 216 letters which compose the 72 names of God. And we'll take a break here. How can you bring back those 72 names of God? Since you have them in yourself, you need to communicate them through 3 chakras, so you understand. Mouth, heart, and genitals. So you will need to lie on the tomb of the deceased and through the mouth transfer 72 names from your heart to theirs and from your genitals to theirs. But I would recommend you don't do this. We are now living in times of tremendous crisis and huge blocks in businesses and projects. I've received many phone calls from great Israeli tzaddikims, and many justs of Israel have no income at all, 0. And that's happened to me just this week. The idea is to descend on the world an energy that breaks this crisis, this chaos, and opens the channels of abundance, especially for the just. For us, but for the just too, because they are dedicated to studying, and most of them don't even work. They live off what's given to them. But since we don't have $3 billion to feed everybody, but in the spiritual world, there's that and much more. And you can find it in terms of energy. So we're going to bring down this energy. I'm going to give you the code to make that energy for success in business, money, and projects. We will meditate it. We are going to add it, and we're going to project it. And if it works, and there's no doubt it will, in a short amount of time, that energy will become events, and events in physical acts, and physical acts in banknotes. Who said amen? Somebody who needs banknotes themselves? We all do, right? We all need banknotes. But you asked for everybody to have, right? Yes, for everybody. So I'm going to write down 9 letters that we will need to meditate. These are the initials of a verse that we speak of when we do the Birkat Levana, the pledge, the prayer to the moon, new moon. Lev taor berali Elohim beruach nachon chadesh bekirbi. So we're asking God to have a renewed heart and a new soul. A renewed heart and a new soul. But that's only the poetry. The code are the initials of these words, which are Lamed, Tet, Bet, Lamed, Aleph, Vav, Nun, Chet, Bet. There are 9 letters for business, economic, and project, and life success, and so on. Very useful nowadays. A lot of people say amen when I mention this. In Birkat Levana, we repeat this 7 times. Lamed Tet Bet, Lamed Aleph, Vav Nun, Chet Bet. There's something here. Do you want to see it? Do you want to see it in the text? The literal meaning? It's poetry. It doesn't have one. God creates in me a pure heart and renews a righteous soul. This is just to remember the initials. It's in page 392 of the Patach Liau, and it's what we say at night. If you've written them down, let's meditate. Feet in parallel, hands on your knees. And you need to believe that this is not only for you. We're going to interiorize it and then project it. And most of all, we're going to project on the just in the world, who themselves will project to the rest of humans. We breathe in deeply 3 times. Again. Again. We project in a David star, Magen David, of golden color and great size, as big as this room. We are a beam of white light inside this room. We're visualizing in front of us another golden star of David, and we will invoke letters one by one, and we will shine light on them as if they were candles, and we will light the candle one by one. Visualize that. We call for Lamed. Point at it with my finger. If you can't visualize it, look at the whiteboard with its vowel, and we light it. It's white in color. We call for Tet, the second letter, with its vowel, and we light it up. We call for Bet. We light it up. We call for Lamed, and we light it up. We call for Aleph, and we light it up. We call for Vav, and we light it up. We call for Nun, and we light it up. We call for Chet, and we light it up. We call for Bet, and we light it up. We now have all the letters illuminated, and we're all merging the flames, and it will surpass the top of David's star, and we will bring it to our David star to collect all that light. And if it will descend upon us in the form of a very shiny light, very powerful light. And it penetrates our cranium, illuminating our brain. Brain is illuminated down to the heart, and your heart illuminates. It goes down to your liver, and it illuminates. Goes up to your heart, and it illuminates. Up to the brain, and it illuminates. Down to the heart, and it illuminates. Up to the brain, and it illuminates. And it's going to start picking up the pace. Down to the heart, up to the brain, heart, 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 brain. The light goes up through our cranium, and we generate a cloud where snowflakes go through, but they're the energy of this light, and it impregnates our aura with these letters. Lev Taor Berali Elohim Beruach Nachon Chadesh Bekirbi. Lamed Tet Bet Lamed Aleph Vav Nun Chet Bet. And we notice a huge force capable of breaking the chaos, the blockage, and capable of channeling energy for success in economy, project, business, and life projects. It's as if the nail doesn't go into the wall, and we grab the power tool to make sure the hole is there for the nail. Now that we have this power, we will form a circle. We will stand in a circle among us. And planet Earth will be in the middle, as if it were a football. And this light we will project from in between our eyes, from our third eye. A very powerful purple light that goes through anything. And we're going to project it on the tzaddikim and the Kabbalists and the just of this world. So they receive abundance, well-being, and they in turn can project it to the rest of humanity. And we start projecting this purple light towards the tzaddikim who will receive them in their third eye. Have we received answer from this we're doing? There will be, because the tzaddikim are conversing, talking to each one of us, and we all have our own conversations. We now breathe deeply 3 times. Again. And we open our eyes. While you were meditating, I was in a different plane, and I interviewed the astral beings that I mentioned earlier, the ones that generate karma in this world. If you remember, God awarded that power to generate karma, and I asked them if this work you were doing here could influence karma of the world. And they said to me, through the merit of this name of God that you're doing, we've changed the karma of the world. So see you in 15 days.